All right, folks, we have some videos to catch up on. Not only do we have the Taurus November 8th dreaded eclipse on Tuesday, early Tuesday morning Pacific time, we've also got Jupiter that is now retrograde into Pisces and Mars that is retrograde in Gemini. The Jupiter and Mars videos I will do separately. Right now I'm going to focus on the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus on November the 8th, which is conjunct Uranus to the degree. Now, I think it might be worth it for some of us to look at this full moon lunar eclipse both as a full moon and a lunar eclipse. As a full moon, it is likely that the Taurus part of your chart experiences some escalation. Whether this is an intuitive awareness, an emotional awareness, an offer, whether it is visibility. On the positive side, it can be visibility and offers. On the more challenging side, it can bring up some sort of flare-up, intuitive, emotional flare-up. What is worth mentioning is that this full moon is square Saturn in Aquarius. And so here we go again. We've got this Saturn-Uranus square. And we've talked a lot about Saturn in Aquarius and the lessons that need to be learned and the patterns and behaviors in the Aquarius part of our chart that are no longer serving us that need to be shed. And what are those lessons? And it could be that this, if whatever this flare-up or this offer is, I'm trying to think of the best way to express it. The full moon in and of itself is a faster moving transit than the Saturn transit, which continues into March. Whatever this event is that takes you in the Taurus part of your chart that's operating as a full moon is a necessary development to continue to integrate whatever needs to be integrated in the Saturn part of our chart. That's the best way that I can describe it. This Saturn, let me continue to die. Whatever it is that comes up, let's say if it is it's unlikely that the Aquarius part of your chart is not going to be engaged in whatever it is that's coming up, whether positively or in a more challenging way as you head towards Tuesday. So if you think of a full moon, if you think of a new moon 2 weeks ago as a wave starting to move towards the shore and the full moon being the crash on the shore, then whatever that energy is in the Taurus part of your chart, whether it is a visibility or an offer or something challenging that bubbles up to the surface, somewhere lessons related to the Aquarius part of your chart are activated. And they are very much in play with regard to how you handle and deal with either the positive offer or visibility or the more challenging energy of some sort of intuitive flare-up or awareness. Let's continue to develop this. As far as the eclipse itself is concerned and the full moon is concerned, it is quite, it's actually quite simple. You've got the moon and Aquarius. You've got the moon and Mercury is combust. It's very, very close to the sun. So it will not surprise me if you've been feeling what feels like Mercury retrograde energy in a more minor form. So that those energies are also at play. So you've got the moon, the north node, it's a north node eclipse, and Uranus in Taurus. But in Scorpio, opposite this full moon, you've got the sun, which is what makes the moon full. You've got a full Uranus, but you've got the sun, Mercury, and Venus in Scorpio. And then you've got Saturn squaring this full moon in Aquarius. Straightforward. In Scorpio, in order, South Node, Mercury, Sun, Venus. In Taurus, in order, North Node, Moon, Uranus. Okay. The moon itself and the eclipse is in Taurus. conjunct Uranus. The Taurus part of our chart is requiring, with the North Node eclipses, number one, us to lean into the Taurus part of our chart and learn lessons and engage with the Taurus part of our chart so that we can continue to grow and expand in the Taurus parts of our chart. Consequently, there are lessons and there are opportunities that allow us to do so. And this full moon lunar eclipse may bring opportunities along this path. I'm going to expand on that in terms of timelines in a second. In addition, when we are dealing with a Uranus transit, the Taurus part of our chart is also seeking greater authenticity. And this is a little bit more complicated, and it is an undeniable energy, because authenticity often requires that we deal with situations. It's an inner yearning, but the universe also gives us signs and signals around where it is that we can become more ourselves in the Taurus part of our chart. And the full moon eclipse is conjunct Uranus. So opportunities to lean into strengthening, developing our skills, our muscles, any weaknesses to be strengthened, leaning into the Taurus part of our chart and moving towards greater authenticity. This could show up as rebellion, quantum leaps of imagining possibilities in the Taurus part of our chart. Rebellion, because with Uranus and authenticity, as you become more and more authentic, structures and patterns and behaviors and relationships that have not served that authenticity will likely start to fall apart. And there are often accusations from people who are starting to fall by the wayside of this process, selfishness or diva-like behavior, or or rebellion, or kind of a teenage energy, authentic energy, okay? And as I said, this authenticity could mean that all of a sudden you feel like you have to take the Taurus part of your chart very, very seriously, and you want to lean into that part of a chart. It kind of has a make or break feeling. With Uranus, it can feel very liberation and liberty in this part of your chart. It can become very active emotionally and activated. You know, it's like, this is who I am, this is what I need to do, this is how I need to operate, this is what, you know, kind of a breaking free of shackles. In terms of the quantum leaps of development, it could be that the way you have perceived yourself as operating in the Taurus part of your chart starts to expand, so that you realize that in order to really maximize the potential, the North Node eclipse, of the Taurus part of your chart, you need to expand your vision and understanding of how to operate in the Taurus part of your chart and who you can be in the Taurus part of your chart. All very exciting. But with the North Node, we're always challenged. And with Uranus, we're always challenged. But it's an undeniable urge. It's an undeniable call. Now, in the Scorpio part of our chart, opposing these energies are Venus, the Sun, and Mercury. And these planets are all squaring Saturn, but Venus, the Sun, and Mercury are also getting ready to trine Neptune in Pisces. So there's something, and the South Node is in the Scorpio part of our chart. There's something in the Scorpio part of the chart that you may value or have valued that needs releasing in order to free up and activate the Taurus part of your chart. And as you head toward this November 8th eclipse, it would not surprise me at all if you're, it's not even feeling the need to do it. It's almost like the universe, with eclipses, remember, God takes the wheel, the universe takes the wheel. You don't have a whole lot of control. And with eclipses, I've mentioned this before, themes of mortality, sudden passing, or passing that's been, by passing I mean the death of someone. Mortality issues become, the veil between this world and the next sort of becomes thinner. And the other thing, I'll come to timelines in a second. So intimations of our own mortality, other people's mortality, experiencing events in eclipsy forms, sort of lightning bolts of energy, or sudden things happening. You may experience this with news of celebrities, or related to their passing, or something related to mortality, or just kind of external global news being really kind of electric. As always, never ceases to amaze me how it is that full moons in Taurus always seem to accompany the U.S. election cycle, whether it's the midterms or the presidential elections. Now, in simple terms, we're being asked to move towards and strengthen and expand the Taurus part of our chart, and we're going to feel the pressure and the warning and the need to release something in the Scorpio part of our chart very clearly. And it's like, take the axe and cut that rope and move to the Taurus part of your chart. But as we head towards doing that, you're going to feel that tug of war. You're going to feel the pressure building in the Scorpio part of your chart. Remember, we've got 3 planets opposing this full moon in Uranus. The planet of what you value, and money, and relationships. The awareness that the sun gives in the Scorpio part of our chart, the internal awareness, the spotlight, and Mercury, our thinking, our processing, as it is, it's combust, and as it is on the day of the eclipse, Mercury and the sun become conjunct. And so Mercury, our mind, is going to be downloading information directly from the sun with regard to how to process and how to think about the Scorpio part of our chart. A lot happening in the Scorpio part of the chart, but a lot of this is geared towards releasing what we need to and supporting releasing what we need to in the Pisces part of our charts. I have mentioned this before. The Pisces part of our chart has seen very nebulous, very gaslighty, very murky energy. Loss. Now, unless the Pisces part of our chart, with the Neptune transit there, is concerning artistic development or spiritual development or desired renunciation. For many of us, we may be dealing with issues related to loss somehow, or theft, or gaslighting. There's something about the supportive transits of Venus, the Sun, and Mercury with Neptune that talks to this release in the Scorpio part of our chart as aiding whatever needs to be lost and given up in the Pisces part of the chart to continue our quantum leaps of growth in the Taurus part of our chart. The 2 transits that are the 1 transit, other transit that is occurring, that is important to me when we look at this full moon lunar eclipse, is Mars, now retrograde, also squares Neptune. And I've told you that in the Gemini part of your chart, there are some energies that are supporting this Taurus growth, and there are some energies that are nibbling away and creating this loss in the Pisces part of our chart. And somewhere events may be conspiring towards this release, and releasing things when it comes to Neptune, or releasing things that when it comes to the South Node, are not easy, because these are things that are either subconscious strengths or things that we don't necessarily want to release. But this is all part of our bigger plan. And the universe takes the wheel. The signs for me are pretty clear. On a mundane level, the Scorpio part of your chart is going through its annual review, and you may even experience a certain amount of gain and peace and harmony in the Scorpio part of your chart. You may be thinking about the Scorpio part of the chart, but on an eclipse level, there's a release. And that supports, as bizarre as it sounds, the Pisces part of your chart, where something kind of mystically has to be given up so that the Taurus part of your chart can be strengthened. Now, when it comes to eclipses, they can be quite mysterious. You can have the Scorpio eclipse, but it's the Taurus part of your chart that feels more active. You can have the Taurus eclipse and the Scorpio part of your chart that can feel more active. Irrespective, they work hand in hand. There's release needed in the Scorpio part of your chart and energy and direction needed in the Taurus part of your chart. And when I say the part of your chart, I'm talking about the houses that these signs occupy and what those houses stand for, and the relationships and the material manifestations of objects and things and possessions that belong in these part of your charts, where the sign of Taurus sits and where the sign of Scorpio sits. Added to all of this, of course, is the square, is the Saturn square. And what these lessons are, you will know, and you will be experiencing, and they're very, very active. They're so it's not a comfortable, it really is one hell of an eclipse. Now, many of us, I'll come back to the Saturn portion. Many of us have experienced and felt this eclipse the week before and after September 10th of this year. So by the time you get to this eclipse, everything may simply have been rolling down the hill and expanding since the first 2 weeks of September. So that by the time you come to this point, you may just realize that what needs to be released and what needs to be leaned into and what needs to, it's underway. And it's coming to some sort of a culmination point, or it's just sort of expanding and mushrooming since September the 10th. So you may not feel this eclipse quite as powerfully as events that occurred in the first 2 weeks of September, and that's the way this goes with eclipses. The other thing with eclipses, I want to give you this timeline. The first of the Taurus eclipses, and this is out of interest, occurred November 19th of last year, 2021. So something expanded, new energies came in between September 19th and November 19th. And you may feel these energies come up again over the next few days. Then the next Taurus eclipse, which was a solar eclipse, was on April the 30th. So as we head to November the 8th, April the 30th, the week before, week after, June the 30th, week before, week after, September 8th, week before, week after, as opposed to September 10th, and November 8th form one sequence of growth in the Taurus part of our chart, of growing intimations of us becoming more fully ourselves, liberated, individualized in the Taurus part of our chart. The square with Saturn, you have got to determine what lessons have to be learned from a boundary setting perspective, whether you're setting boundaries on yourself or others. That's what I was trying to say with the Saturn perspective. Now, if Saturn is transiting your first house or second house, it could be that the boundaries are against others. If Saturn is transiting your 7th or 8th house, it may be that others are perceiving you, others are setting boundaries around you, and you may have to try and figure out why this is going on and what the lessons are around this. With Saturn, it's always lessons and growth, and it's trying to teach you to be more effective in these parts of the chart, wherever the Saturn transit is occurring. So what are the lessons that have come up in the Aquarius part of your chart over the past couple of years, and this continues till March of next year? If anything, it starts to now intensify as we head towards that direction. What are the lessons that have come up that you've had to learn, that you have to become present to, where you may have been humbled, or there's a lot of work, or what are those lessons? And pay attention to those lessons, and they will very much be in play with these eclipses. You can't ignore the square to Saturn. It's not an entirely easy eclipse, because the one harmonious transit that is made to Neptune. And while whatever losses experienced through the Scorpio and Pisces chart of the chart shop may very well be aiding the Taurus part of your chart, it's still likely to be a loss. What is it that you need to give up in order to be actualized and give more attention to the Taurus part of your chart? That's the question that we come to with this eclipse. That's the question that we come to with this eclipse. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Gemini. It is retrograde. Mercury in Scorpio. So between Mercury and Mars, you've got a certain dispositing of the chart. Pluto is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn and Uranus. You know, all these planets that we've talked about are in play in terms of rulership and dispositing. A retrograde Mars in Gemini squaring Neptune. The planets in Scorpio. The planets in Taurus. And Pluto in Capricorn is also in play. And remember, the transformations that are occurring in the Capricorn part of your chart are in supportive conversation with these eclipses that are going on in Taurus. This is all I'm going to say because this is enough to process in terms of timelines, drama. I would much rather get you to a point where you are awake to the Taurus and Scorpio and Aquarius and Gemini and Pisces and Capricorn parts of your chart and seeing the interplay of what is developing. I've already given you dates and deadlines. I've already given you dates to consider. Think about those. Think about the developments. Think about the lessons that you've had to learn that lead you towards greater development and individuation and growth in the Taurus part of your chart and what needs to be done to continue to support that. Think about the lessons that you've been learning in the Aquarius part of your chart. Think about what needs to be released in the Scorpio Pisces part of your chart. Be aware of what is developing in the Gemini part of your chart. That's going to be my next video, Mars retrograde in Gemini. All right, I will leave it at this. If you like the video, share it, comment on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button, the little wiggly thing on top so you're notified when I do new videos. Over and out for now.